Well, good morning, everybody. Today is January 3rd. And what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to go into this cold front. Now, we're back on the animals, and we're going to go into AI and what AI is doing to our planet. I know it's hard for a lot of people to believe, but I will present a case that AI is behind the destruction of our planet for an AI takeover. That's what the New World Order is. Now, for today, we need to protect our animals. Today, these are your temperatures today. You can see this very cold area. Okay, this freeze is going to go on for several days. Then it's going to do a lull, and then it's going to come back again. Now, I would love for everyone to give us solutions down in the comment section of ideas for protecting the animals out there. Okay, now somebody left a great comment yesterday, and they were talking about, instead of throwing your Christmas tree away, take it somewhere out, maybe in a sheltered area behind a shed, whatever, something like this. Secure it down a little bit. And what they did is they put straw in the bottom, and then they put food in there for the animals. Now, this is a way for the birds to kind of get burrowed in a little bit. I mean, we're talking deadly, deadly temperatures. Okay, this is tonight. Okay, these are frightful temperatures for our animals. I'm going to show you where AI is killing our world. While you're not paying attention, it's not going to be so much the humans who die here right now. It's going to be the animals. And by the way, somebody else left a very good comment too, saying, hey, yes, what if you tried to survive and they kill off all the animals and there's no way to survive outside of their controlled AI matrix? Very good point. And this is going to be Thursday night. Thursday night. These temperatures are not going down. Okay, so we must protect our animals. That's the number one thing we must pay attention to. Now, I'm going to show you the AI system that I believe is taking over our planet. Now, this is a very, very good video. It's by Woodard TV. He just put it out on the 1st. Thank you so much for that. Now, he does a really good job of talking about the AI. Now, let me just cue it up. Now, in order to keep this video streamlined, I am going to have to cut through this video a bit. I'll leave the link, but here we go. Let's get started.
There is something that has come to my attention, and that is many people have been discussing the coming of artificial intelligence technology, AI. Now, why is that? Why is this topic suddenly trending? What's happening? Mankind has come a long way. Everything we were once entertained by, science fiction, is becoming reality. How about that? Let me ask you all a question. How many of you believe that there are other dimensions, other realms outside our own? How many of you have a knowingness that there is something to that idea?
We do.
But are these dimensions really what we think they are? We are living in very exciting times, and we are beginning to live in our dreamed future. So let's take a closer look at what man once again has brought upon himself, an artificial system created in man's likeness. Unfortunately, unlike God, anything man makes breaks.
There you go. That's to start you off. Now, I do have to scoot through here, people. Please bear with me. Otherwise, this will be quite long. Okay, so now we're just going to further up. The D wave, and I can tell you some spooky stories about the D wave. My son, just before we get into this, my son years ago, he said around 2002, he had gone into a chat room, and this guy had said that he was from the future. Now, there were time travelers. I had a 2065 time traveler saying the same thing. Both of them said that the D wave would control our planet in the future, and it all depends on us. Right now, we're at that pivotal moment. That's why I'm doing this. Okay, so here we go. Let's continue.
There are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch and whether you chose to come to this session or not. Quantum mechanics makes a very specific prediction that all of those are as real as the thing that you remember.
So right now, there are over 3 billion global internet users, feeding the system with ever-increasing amounts of data around the clock. And as this data continues to grow, there is an increase in the need of more powerful processors and greater amounts of storage. At the same time, we have made computer components as small as we can make them with today's technology. And so, today, the race continues to build the best quantum computers. Traditional computer systems operate using binary digits or bits, zeros and ones. 1 bit is equal to a 0 or a 1. The computer byte is a unit of storage. 1 byte of data is equal to 8 bits. Now, throughout the timeline of computer history, many of us have witnessed how computers have become smaller, smarter. They can process and store larger amounts of data. Right now, you can get a few terabytes of data storage on a single flash drive. It's going to be quite expensive, but aside from that, many of us understand how huge just 1 terabyte of data is, because we've lived through the evolution of commercial data storage. 1 or 2 terabytes of data in a drive the size of your thumb is pretty valuable when you think about it, and pretty amazing.
We have to keep moving forward, okay? Otherwise it will be too long. I will leave this link. Excellent video.
Another. The processor or microprocessor is the central processing unit of the computer, or CPU. It is the brain of the computer in one chip. A chip made from silicone containing millions of transistors or switches that conduct the electrical energy. Because so much energy runs through such a small chip, they give off a lot of heat. And so an adequate cooling system is needed to stabilize the chip. Now, today's computers seem to be quite adequate when it comes to speed and memory storage for commercial use. But see, when it comes to solving a problem, where the number of variables and solutions to the problem are extraordinarily large, you need an extraordinarily sophisticated machine to run through all possible solutions, all at once, in a tenth of a second.
Okay, now also what we have going on, run by the D-Wave, is the Sentient World Simulator, and that's exactly what it's doing. In order to bring about the New World Order, it is calculating everything, every millisecond. So every move you make to try to stop the New World Order, it's compensating constantly. It's quite a feat to work beyond it, but not impossible. Okay, and there's this very simple way to stop it. All you have to do is disengage. It is so simple. There is no battle. There is no war with AI. You must just simply disengage. Okay, I'm just trying to tell you the solution. We're not going to be wallowing in the very negative, because it will become negative if we don't take control of our planet and our world. Now, this is how it does the quantum entanglement data, and it does what it calls a resource. It goes into another dimension and it pulls out what they call resource.
When a traditional computer looks for the solution to a problem, it is looking at an artificial landscape of solutions, in where the best solution to the problem lies in the lowest valley. The problem is, the computer can only search through certain areas of the landscape at one time. And it may not always find the lowest valley because it cannot see around, over, or through the hills and other landscape formations to see that valley. In other words, traditional computers are very limited when it comes to problem solving. A quantum computer, however, can look through multiple areas of the landscape.
There you go.
And it can even tunnel through that landscape that may be blocking or hiding the lowest valley, creating a quicker path to the best solution. The D-Wave chip is connected to a user interface located on the outside of the box. You ask it a question, the computer decodes the information and sends it through the chip. The chip sends back the answer in the form of a code, which is then translated and sent back to the user interface. This is all part of the quantum annealing process. Each coordinate on the landscape represents a possible solution, and its level on the landscape represents its level of energy. The coordinate at the lowest energy level or state is the best solution. Imagine this system's applications.
Absolutely.
This is why D-Wave has excited customers such as Lockheed Martin, the University of Southern California, Quail, which is the Quantum Artificial Intelligence Lab formed by NASA, the USRA, and Google. The Los Alamos National Laboratory is also a customer of D-Wave, along with Temporal Defense Systems and the Oak Ridge National Laboratory.
Okay, so the other thing that I did have to skip over is the quantum entanglement, how it does this, okay? So it looks like he said for any possible solution, this is how the Sentient World Simulator works. This is how they're actually bringing in the New World Order. It counters you as fast as every move you make. However, you can still, it's 3 to 5 moves ahead of humans. However, when you understand it, you can start working on its level. This is not a gloom and doom video. This is how understanding what's happening, how this AI is trying to take over our world. But again, just to disengage is the answer. Now let's go back to this.
There are people who believe that the D-Wave system is a way to gain access to other dimensions. Now, where would anyone get an idea like that? Well, D-Wave, of course.
So the way I think about it is that the shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world. Now, this may sound very odd to you and bizarre, and in fact, I am using language that a normal theoretical physicist probably wouldn't use, but this is, what I'm telling you is absolutely correct and in line with the way that these things actually work.
Just like NASA, just like CERN, just like HARP, they are all building and playing with technology that they admit they do not 100% fully understand. They don't really know how these machines work. They only know that they do work. So tell me, folks, how do you successfully build something that you don't understand and it ends up working? I can almost guarantee you that the design idea did not just come out of nowhere. With the number of qubits their latest model has, every time you add a qubit to the system, you double the number of alternate worlds. And I'm talking about all the D-Wave computers combined because they are connected. They wanted this computer to be able to think on the level of a human being. Well, D-Wave achieved that some time ago. They are way past that stage now because they know something about how humans think. They know that we are neurologically connected somehow, connected to these other realms or realm on a quantum level within the neurons. You know, there are organizations that actually study paranormal phenomena, not the way you see on TV. They actually seriously study the science behind it because they want to understand how these beings can slip in and out of our world. So in the research departments you don't hear about, they study these things. They conduct experiments, or should I say, rituals. They try to summon these entities for study. Can you imagine them trying to catch spirits like in Ghostbusters? Why? Because they want to know how these beings can do what they do. It's quite an odd and dark concept, I know, but this is one of the ingredients to constructing a Stargate. CERN has several functions. Do they want to open portals? Yes, they said so. Are they doing it? Well, that's where this quantum computer system comes in. Understand what the D-Wave system does. It sends information in the form of electrical pulse energy through a nexus point to another freaking world, or worlds as they put it. And it is receiving information in the form of a greater amount of energy. The problem, folks, with opening a physical portal is that you need something smart enough and fast enough to control it. So you take the D-Wave system and you hook it up to CERN's collider. Now you have a way to control the opening of that portal and a map of that other world, thanks to D-Wave. But you have another problem. The super intelligent beings on the other side.
There you go.
And this is where a supreme AI system comes into play. You know, D-Wave, I would love to give you an analogy of how fast this thing is, but it is beyond our comprehension. Let's just say it is smarter than every human on the planet combined.
Okay, there you go. To realize what we are up against, however, all we simply have to do is disengage, believe it or not. But we'll go into the addiction on another video of the cell phones and the Wi-Fi devices. You're going to find they're highly addictive on purpose. AI is drawing you in to take over our planet. It might sound like sci-fi, but it's actually not. Now I'm going to leave you with this ominous statement by Gordy Rose.
So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god.
Okay, now let's go into Dane, Wigington. We're going to connect this now to the Geo-Engineering, how it is, the method they're using, okay, to destroy our planet. Give me a moment here, please. Okay, we're trying to do it as smooth as we can, but this is so critical for the planet to understand. And when you start connecting it to the weather warfare program, you realize AI is killing our world to take it over for themselves. It's up to the humans to recognize it and disengage. And the cryptocurrency coming through is for AI. And the 5G is for the AI, the robots, and the driverless cars. It is not for the humans. Here we go.
This to believe it. And these frequencies, which are coming from the cell towers, from the giant ionosphere heaters that are in Alaska, and they're setting up a virtual grid of microwave transmitters. Everything you see that you think is a cell tower and a cell phone repeater only. Why do those towers, and we have them right here in Reading, they're all over the country, why do they have 10 times more power in them than is needed for cell phone transmission? Because they're being used for climate modification. This manipulates the particulates in the atmosphere, manipulates precipitation. And that's what frequencies do to particulates. Again, you have to see this to believe it. And what are these frequencies doing to us? And how many of you know that we're about to go to 5G? That's a frequency that is used for crowd control. Why would we go to 5Gs? There's very documented effects on the human body from the 5G transmissions. And if frequencies do that to particulates, again, what's it doing to us? What's it doing to the web of life?
Okay, do you see AI's control? It is using the frequencies. These are abnormal frequencies. We are Schumann resonance, 7.8 hertz approximately. These frequencies are off the chart. You see them developing in your world in the last couple decades. You've seen it.
Anything that's alive has water in it in some form or another. What's happening to us with this? And the next video is even more profound, because you can see what frequencies do to water. Bear with me for one moment, because you have to see this to believe it as well. And we have no study to prove exactly how detrimental these are to the human organism or life as a whole. Watch what happens to a flow of water when it's exposed to frequency. Very hard to believe, and when you feel that with particulates, the effect is even more profound. There are things that we don't fully understand, that science has not investigated, or at least not disclosed to the public. But when you consider that radio frequencies, you saw the square clouds earlier, when you consider what radio frequencies do to water, to particulates, consider this. There's a radio frequency transmitter that, based on the signal transmission direction, is isolating precipitation and blocking out a whole section of precipitation. These are one of the radio frequency transmitters, as I've mentioned. Again, they're being put up all over the country, all over the world, wherever the grid power will support them. What's it doing to us? If it can manipulate precipitation to that form, so they are deciding now who gets rain, who doesn't, how toxic the rain is, how much radio frequency we're exposed to. We're simply lab rats at this point.
That's right.
Again, you saw the radio frequency transmission carving out a 90-degree inside corner. That's the overall effect in the end. Completely unnatural. There's not a meteorologist that doesn't know this is going on. No chance.
They're under a gag order.
Another square cloud off the coast of California. And the amount of manipulation being done off the U.S. West Coast is absolutely profound. Now, this is important. This is a major aspect of climate engineering that very few understand and very few acknowledge, even in the anti-climate engineering community. Look closely at New York. Watch this animation and you see a stripe appearing right there. Hope everybody can see that. This is warm moisture right out of the Gulf of Mexico. I recorded this last winter, and that stripe of snow, how do you get a symmetrical stripe of snow blanketing right over New York, and why would they do this? It's chemical ice nucleation for weather modification. This is a huge aspect of climate engineering that, again, many in the anti-climate engineering community aren't even acknowledging, researching, or pointing out. The purpose of this is to create the illusion of winter on a planet that's in full-blown meltdown, and every event the climate engineers carry out, every operation, worsens the overall disintegration of the climate system. So when you get a symmetrical stripe of snow appearing right over New York, they're concentrating on the most populated areas to continue the climate confusion, division, the division of populations, arguing about issues that they are being confused about because of issues like this. So the climate engineers with chemical ice nucleation can create what should have been rain into snow. That's exactly what's happening there. To prove that point, there's chemical ice nucleating agent being put in that vessel of water, freezes it instantly. Instantly. Now, how many people know that a chemical nucleating agent can do that? And what happens when that's dumped on clouds? You get snow at 50 degrees. Ice nucleating characteristics are very profound, just like the frequencies are very profound. There's a lot about science that the science community doesn't really want the public to know, because then they might question, why is it snowing at 50 degrees? Why is it snowing over the pyramids? Why are these events happening? They look very confusing to people. Since we all love to hate Al Gore, they buy into this as being proof that there's no global warming. This is a psyop. It's part of the psyop of climate engineering. Confuse the population with chemical ice nucleation. If it wasn't for this particular part of climate engineering, there would be no confusion as to what's happening with the state of the climate. This is important because this is how they're hiding for the moment the fact that Arctic ice is disintegrating. That's an ice pattern just south of Greenland. It looks like a chemical spill because that's exactly what it is. They're chemically nucleating the surface and calling it ice pack. So statistically, they can pretend that there's still some ice in the Arctic. We may have a blue ocean event this year with huge ramifications. I'll get to that in a moment. But this is chemical ice nucleation on the surface. It's completely unnatural ice nucleation on an ocean that's too warm to support that nucleation. This is what happens when those nucleating materials wash up on the shore. How many people think that could be natural, perfectly spherical ice boulders? And when we have academia, Weather Channel, Weather Central, and all the rest, and our local weatherman, Mike Mangus, if anybody knows who he is, all lying, all absolutely saying whatever they're told to say, reading from a script done for them by Raytheon, because Raytheon does all the weather modeling for National Weather Service and NOAA. Who could think that that's normal? And it's happening all over the globe. That's the Baltic Sea. Same thing. How do ice balls wash in from oceans that aren't even freezing? The other one was ice balls, by the way, on the shores of Lake Michigan, and that happened at 40-degree water. How do you have 75-pound perfectly spherical ice balls on 40-degree water? That's the degree of desperation we have from the climate engineers trying to mask the severity of damage done to the climate. This is important because this is about the Dakota protesters. What happened? This was with temperatures at nearly 50 degrees. If you look right there off of Duluth, as this moisture, which again was far above freezing, you'll see a big, where you see that big snow zone pop in and pop out right there, right where the laser is shining. They were chemically nucleating snow over the Dakota protesters to freeze them out. They did the same thing to the Wall Street protesters. This is a very simple process for the climate engineers. It's a patented process. The Chinese scientists openly announced they were doing this. Any of you can look this up. If you search Chinese scientists engineer artificial snowstorm, you'll find Popular Science and Fox News covered it. This is real, but how many people even know this is going on? Because they don't want to know. How many people stop to consider that injecting mercury and aluminum into your veins with vaccinations is certainly harmful? People don't want to know, but it's up to us to change that equation.
That is correct.
This is what happens when you chemically nucleate a storm, and this is a current map. Right now, July 31st through August 24th, what's going to happen? We're going to be continuing in record-shattering warmth from the west, while we have a bullseye of engineered cool down in the middle. Meteorologically, this scenario is impossible and unprecedented. And I've documented this again and again and again, the weather whiplash being created with chemical ice nucleation and jet stream manipulation. That can't happen without climate engineering. Record low temperatures perhaps in the middle of the B and record high on the west coast. So they manipulate weather whiplash scenarios, and that keeps the population confused and divided as to the true state of the climate. That's a current map right now. They're heading for that cool down back east while we're going to continue to fry here, and they can keep us frying as long as they want. This is Larsen C. If you don't know, an iceberg the size of Delaware just broke off, sticking up 600 feet out of the ocean. It's one of the largest chunks of ice ever to break off, and now the whole Larsen C shelf is probably going to disintegrate. And why this is so important is because that then allows the land-based ice to slide off into the ocean. So climate engineers are trying to hide this. And the clouds you see in the background, the wispy clouds, those are all aerosols, and they're geoengineering over the poles to a horrific level. In fact, now some of the climate scientists are wondering why there's no clear sky over the poles almost at all. And what's it doing to the atmosphere? As I mentioned a little while ago with the B-17s, World War II, they started climate engineering over the poles. Where was the first ozone destruction we saw? Over the South Pole. And they blamed it on CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, but the primary causal factor was climate engineering. It's destroying the ozone layer. NASA in 2014 admitted that they were getting UV readings comparable to the surface of Mars. How many of you can feel how hot the sun feels on your skin? It's hard to miss, and many people convince themselves they're getting older and more sensitive. That's not the case. We're seeing UVB levels many times higher than we're being told. We're seeing UVC on the surface. That's a DNA-altering level of UV radiation. It's happening now. We're not being told. If we had no other issues, if we had no other problems, we have a NASA engineer working directly for us with very expensive state-of-the-art equipment. At the current rate of ozone destruction, he gives us 8 years until total ozone collapse. If we stay on this course, and if that happens, if the ozone layer does collapse, it's game over. If we had no other issues, that would end terrestrial life on Earth and most aquatic life. And right now, to give you an idea of the severity right now, and many people don't believe this, especially in academia, hardest to reach, they don't want to believe this, they're told not to believe it. We're down on plankton populations right now about 60%. UV is killing plankton as well, along with a lot of other things. No plankton, no life on Earth. It's killing trees. No trees, no life on Earth. The walls are closing in from every direction, and so many roads lead back to climate engineering. This is methane, another key factor in the equation that climate science community does not even acknowledge in their equation. This is not methane from cow flatulence, which is a part of the equation, but that's used to anger people and get them to ignore everything. We have massive methane deposits that are releasing from Arctic tundra and the seafloor, massive methane deposits. Methane over a 10-year time horizon is from 100 to 120 times more potent than CO2 as a greenhouse gas. It's covering the planet right now like a layer of glass, trapping heat. That's why nighttime lows are rising twice as fast as daytime highs. Now, this animation, watch closely. What we're not told, we're told about Arctic ice extent, which is the surface area, which they consider slush as ice pack, which it's not. So they hide the statistic, but what they don't tell you about is the mass, the volume. There is the volume of Arctic ice. It's going straight down. How long can they hide that? And what happens when that ice disappears? The ocean starts to heat at an exponential rate because the ice deflected 90% of the incoming thermal energy from the sun. When that ice is gone, the ocean will absorb 90%, further thawing methane. We think there's enough methane in the Arctic alone to cause a Permian-style mass extinction 100 times over. There's enough methane in the Arctic to turn the planet into Venus, literally. And that's called a pango. It's methane that's thawing and building up pressure in the Arctic tundra, and it explodes like a massive nuclear bomb and expels methane into the atmosphere, and that's what it looks like. Not sure how many of you have seen that. This explodes right out of the tundra, putting immense amounts of methane into the atmosphere, and it's happening on the seafloor. They're seeing the heaving on the seafloor from massive methane expulsions, and I can't stress enough, if we had no other issues besides the methane issue, if this process continues and a large enough component of methane enters the atmosphere, life on this planet as we know it will end. And this has happened before without human activity. 55 million years ago, the Paleocene, Eocene thermal maximum, in 13 years, mass extinction occurred on our planet. And now we have human activity on top, triggering this sort of response from the planet. If this continues, again, mathematically right now, it's an exponential equation. If you've been trained to believe such events take millennia or centuries, it's not the case. Right now, we are free falling into what would be more accurately termed an abrupt climate shift, and climate engineering is making it worse, not better. Forest fires, most directly linked to climate engineering. Why? And this is not to ignore anthropogenic damage to the planet, but climate engineering is toxifying the rain, which poisons the root systems, which kills the trees, destroying the ozone layer, which kills the trees, disrupting the hydrological cycle, the rain cycle, which kills the trees, creating more dry lightning because the atmosphere is more electrically conductive, as I explained earlier in this presentation, so you have more dry lightning. And you have also an incendiary dust. These toxic metals are incendiaries. They coat the foliage and cause explosive fire behavior. How many of you have heard firemen talk about fires that are behaving in ways they've never seen before? Yeah. What will it take to make them look at this issue? So it's up to all of us to share with the firemen that, hey, you need to acknowledge this equation too, because you might die out there underneath a fire blanket that won't do you any good with this sort of explosiveness to the fires. And every time that fire occurs, it feeds a feedback loop. Carbon goes into the atmosphere, more heating, more methane expulsion, more geoengineering, and the equation just continues to get worse. Now,
okay, so he's talking about the feedback loops. Now, obviously, we are in the sixth extinction, but we have to address what is drawing us into that. Now, when you understand that the military is a death cult, I mean, we have a Kino in high ranking in the U.S. military. He is a Satanist. Okay, this connects to these demons being brought into our world. There's something going on here. Why I ask you not to do cryptocurrency, because this is the mechanism that this AI will control this planet and will exterminate the human species. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to bring you that compelling information. Think about these things. Go through these videos I leave to give the full, complete... No, you can see it. You can see it. Just open your eyes. Okay, so anyway, guys, you have a good one. Let's be protecting our animals out there. These are wicked, wicked temperatures. They're not human. This isn't a human thing going on here. We must protect them because we are all together in our natural world, and we must protect all of us together, but especially the animals right now where they are definitely ramped up the killing of them. So anyway, be aware. Please help these animals out. This is going to continue, the cold front, for probably another 5 to almost up to a week. Okay. So anyway, you guys take care. Very important food.